welcome to another of Warren and Will's Wild Wine Reviews. Again, we're 5 or 6 ahead, so we're starting to push 30. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
I am Warren. I have over 2,000 reviews at Vivino, closing in on 2,100.
And I'm Will. I'm a certified sommelier through the Court of Master Sommeliers, and together we are
Warren and Will's Wild Wine Reviews.
How close are you to 2,100 at this point?
I think I'm like 20 or 30 off at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's pretty good.
And there's a bunch of wines I haven't reviewed because I don't review these until we post them.
Right.
Then I'll do the review. So
You're leading it a bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty right. I'm actually, the number I see when I look is quite a bit.
Right. Yeah.
The number of wines that I'm ready to go and
Right.
review them. Now I don't write down the reviews when we do this because I don't need to. I'll go back and look at the video and we talk about what we see and then I'll
It's
pull it out
nice
then.
thing about these videos. They're a great reference later
Yep.
for what did I think of that?
Yeah.
So
what we have here, we'll show you the wine, and this is Maximin Grünhaus Pinot Noir 2019. It's a German Pinot Noir. This is our first Pinot Noir. Warren's been bashing Pinot Noir
But it's
for
German.
5 months, and now, I figured we had to do one eventually, but if I was going to do one, it wasn't going to be some lame American, generic Cali Napa Cab. No, that would be a different thing.
Yeah.
There
is Napa Pinot Noir.
Yeah, there is, but I'm such a... It just so doesn't do anything
Right.
that I tend to stay away from it. But I saw it from Germany. I'm like, well, we got to do it eventually. Let's do it. If we're going to do it, let's do it a little off the beaten path, as it were, because everybody would expect us to do a California Pinot.
Right.
No, I'm going to do German.
Right.
Because, I'm like that.
And Pinot Noir can have... I mean, the thing is we tend to think of Pinot Noir as having a particular expression because that's usually how it's done.
That's how it's done in
But
America.
you can... Well, and it's also done that way in Burgundy, and it's done that way in Alsace. But the thing is that... I mean, they grow Pinot Noir in the south of France, and it's nothing like Burgundian Pinot Noir. But people who really are... the way I would put it is, how you are about Napa Cabs.
Yeah.
And then you have like a lighter-bodied Chilean Cab, and it doesn't do anything for you. Well,
I thought you liked cabs. I love cabs, just not that cab.
Well, right, and so for a Pinot Noir fan who likes, really delicate Burgundies or delicate Willamette Valley Pinots, a gutsy, cheaper south of France Pinot Noir isn't going to do much for him for the converse, but the same general idea. So.
All right, so here's the Vivino info.
Mm-hmm.
So this gets 3.9 stars with 363 ratings.
Okay.
It's 13.5 ABV. 87.42 rather is the national average price for it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an expensive bottle of wine. I don't remember what I paid for it.
Right.
I just saw it and I picked it up. It's currently selling on Vivino for $79.95, so you can get it for $8 cheaper than the national average. Now they've got new information this month, or at least with this bottle of wine, that I'd never seen before. It gives me the allergen contents.
Oh,
this contains milk and eggs. What that means to me is it was cloudy when they made it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get the stuff out. So you drop the egg.
Fining.
Yeah, I don't know what they would do with the milk. I know I've read about it somewhere, but it's not coming to me. I know in the egg case, they put the egg whites, they drop. As they drop, they take all the sediment that's suspended in the wine with it, and then they pour it off, and then you don't get any of the egg. Or at least they try very hard not to. But there's something Also, it gave me the acidity. The pH was 0. I didn't get that. That somehow didn't get cut. But its acidity pH is 0.
Okay.
Now, a lot of the reviews mentioned how acidic it was.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Now, they have 3 separate but contiguous vineyards that cover some 84 acres. Their first documented was in 966 AD.
Sounds about right.
These guys are 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think this family's owned it since the 5th generation.
Probably monastery vineyards.
Yeah, it's located in the Rouar district of Moselle, and I know I got Moselle right, but I probably blew Rouar. 5th generation family member Dr. Karl von Schubert is currently managing it, and he has been since 1981. I don't think 5 generations are enough to cover that 1,000 years. And Stefan Krommel is the current winemaker.
Okay.
In 2007, they planted 1 hectare, 2.5 acres of Pinot. They follow classic maceration in open stainless steel tanks, followed by 18 months in French, Austrian, and regional oak. And they say in order to develop the maximum amount of complexity and structure, they use a combination of first, second, and third fill barrels.
Okay, so new, old, and oldest barrels. All right, well, with no further ado.
So most Pinot doesn't get 2 years in oak that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is that if you're going to use oak,
it smells good.
If you're going to use oak on a Pinot in America, you're generally going to use it's going to be for less time. But by and large, if it's delicate, you want the fruit expression to shine through. Right. Another reason that Pinots don't often ring your bell is they don't have that oak structure.
Right, and I like the oak. I like the oak structure.
Whew, okay,
it smells more like a cab than like a Pinot to me.
Yeah, but it's got something... Okay, I'm going to have to take a minute here and...
Oh, there's the tiniest bit of funk, but it's really,
funky.
Really subtle.
I'm getting more like blue and black fruit.
Oh, yeah, blueberry for sure.
Which is interesting because with Pinot Noir, I used to think of like cranberry, raspberry, strawberry, more delicate. And
I'm getting the other black things fruit. Like currant or...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of that funk. This is going to be interesting to watch what happens as it opens up.
Because it's blueberry, it's currant. I'm not really getting blackberry, which I was expecting with the other stuff.
Yeah, it's all sweet
a little
fruit.
Bit of bramble. A little bit of bramble.
Yeah, there's some vegetal stemmy kind of...
Yeah.
Honestly, I might have thought this was like...
I like the smell of this a lot. I mean, a lot. Of course, if I was going to find a Pinot, right, I have not tasted it yet. Now, if I love it, I'll look like an idiot because I've been going off on it for months.
Well, no, this is a very different Pinot. I would not serve this to a Willamette Valley Burgundian Pinot drinker.
It's also a little colder than I would like it because it was out in my...
This is reminding me a lot of like a Syrah. Like
a
northern
not an Australian.
No, not an Australian Shiraz.
But the French ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the sweeter black and blue fruit and the slight vegetal component in the nose.
I actually had a French Syrah just a couple of days ago. So
really? Where from?
France.
No, I mean, what part of France?
I didn't. It was a $10 bottle.
Okay.
And somebody was like, "Oh, you got to try this." So
probably like the Languedoc, the larger Languedoc.
Yeah, I am not certain. I did not think enough of the wine to do any real looking into it. I reviewed it on Vivino, so if you want to go figure it out, it's there.
Okay, I'll have to look it up. There's the south of France, especially the part of south of France that's west of the Rhone Valley, is just full of Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, all of the classic Rhone varietals. But they're way cheaper. So if you like Rhone wines and you're looking for really well done wines that would be more expensive if they were in the Rhone, but are $10 to $15 in the Languedoc, it's a great area to focus on.
Location. Mm-hmm. Or in our game, locution.
Locution.
Or as my buddy Will said, words.
Yep.
A different Will.
Yeah. Will. No, there's isn't that a Shakespeare quote?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Hamlet.
Yeah. There was a one-act play by a guy named Joel Jones out of Charlottesville called Words, and the play was based around the idea if you give 1,000 monkeys 1,000 typewriters. Well, it's 3 monkeys with 3 typewriters, and one of the little in-jokes of the play is that there's random Shakespeare references scattered throughout, but they're saying them accidentally and not typing them. So they're coming up with Shakespeare, they're just not writing it. Yeah.
Of course, the infinite number, but they've actually done math that proves that's not true because the monkeys are all banging in the middle. And there is no infinite out here. They just don't do it.
Right.
So, that's a silly bit of why somebody took like a couple hundred monkeys so they could extrapolate to a larger number.
Actually, I really do like...
You won't get the works of Shakespeare with the way those guys type. You won't.
I like that kind of thing because there is a very human tendency to think that, if you let randomness continue for long enough, you'll get order. And it's like, that's not really the way that order works. Order works by the result of agency, and monkeys banging on keyboards don't know English and don't know language, and so therefore have no agency in regards to that. So I like that debunking.
This doesn't taste anything at all like an American Pinot.
No.
It's bigger. I mean, of course it is. It spent 2 years in oak. It's not as complex as I would hope from 2 years in oak.
It's still opening up, though. I mean,
it's
been 18 months in oak, and it's a little cold.
A little cold for us. We didn't. I mean, it's Pinot, so I didn't even think about decanting it. But I probably should have since it's been 2 years.
We could. Do you want to?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I don't know if we should pause. We'll just go. We can edit it out.
We'll just take a quick commercial break.
Yeah, and we'll let you see us doing the decanting. Yeah. There's not much to see, but then, well, I don't know.
The thing is, it's just pour. Well, I'll see.
Get on camera. So we're gonna decant this so that the next couple of glasses will be more open, and we'll finish these before we'll pour anything more into them, rather than kind of top them off as we usually do to give it a better chance. God, my hair looks like hell today. Sorry, folks.
Well, it is humid outside, so.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't know what did it to me.
So the nice thing about decanting is even if you're not, like, Warren and I are going to have this in the decanter for not all that long.
5-10 minutes.
Right.
But
just the act of pouring it aerates the wine. So a wine that has been decanted is already a little more open than the wine that's just
poured in your glass again, and so there's a bit more.
Yep.
And in fact, if we were at my house, I would have snagged doing it at this late date. I would have decanted it through an aerator.
Right. Yeah, one of those little
different aerators.
Yeah, I have one called the I can't remember what it's called, but it's a little micro oxygenator. It pulls oxygen through two little tubes, and it makes this really weird sound. It sounds kind of like a coffee pot, sort of, because it's pulling air in it like a micro level that's burbling. But it just shows. Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's supposed to do for pouring a glass of wine straight out of the bottle what 30 to 60 minutes worth of decanting would do.
So what do you get on the back end of this? Because I'm finding that real curious.
It's starting to open up already.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting vanilla on the back end, which is, an expression of oak. So it's like getting smoke.
What I'm getting is like tart red fruit, like cranberry.
Yeah, I'm getting strawberries and raspberries too.
So all that red fruit that wasn't there on the aroma is really kicking in on the. This is one of those wines that will fool you. The first sip is very much like the aroma. The finish is very different, and so while it might not be the most complex wine, it's layered. There's stuff going on here. This is not a one note song from beginning to end.
Yeah, I don't believe they tossed any liquid smoke or mega purple.
Not at all.
Today.
Well,
I mean, this one.
Well, thing is, they're German. They're going to pride themselves on their process,
whereas Americans pride themselves on their bank account.
Mm-hmm. Well, Americans also pride themselves on something else, which is consistency. And the thing about Europeans are used to, I mean, they've been doing this for hundreds of years. They're used to the idea that some vintages are better than others. You let the vintage speak for, you do the best you can with what you've got. You try to make the best wine you can.
Yeah, when the wine tastes the same over and over again, I'm like wondering, how did you do that? Because that's not normal.
It's not normal, and it also, I mean, granted, I think what it's born from is that when you think about if you go to the store and you buy a 6-pack of
Budweiser.
Well, no, I was thinking of like a guy's craft beer, like like a Dogfish Head.
Okay.
You want. I mean,
it's the same.
You want it to be more or less the same.
But since they don't have as much going on with the aging process, I would assume it's easier.
Right. Oh, it absolutely is. You're controlling way more of the beer making process.
Right.
But Americans have it in their mind that it's like if you drink a craft beer, you drink a really nice bourbon, you want that beer bourbon, and so I think that without necessarily realizing that's what they're trying to do, a lot of winemakers are really trying to nail. Now, if you go to the higher end stuff in America, you will notice a lot more variation between years. But if you're looking at the $10 to $15 range, especially with more mass marketed stuff like Miami and things like that, they're going to be consistent from year to year. They have to be. They have to please their market base.
Yeah.
And Europeans aren't bound by the same societal standards, whatever you'd like to call them. There's positive and negative aspects to both of the American.
It's McDonald's winemaking.
Well, yeah, it's like you're never going to be disappointed by it. Whereas with a European winery, you could have something amazing, you could have something that falls way short of what you had before, and so it's kind of, what are you looking for? And when I went to college, we had two main cafeterias, and they literally followed that schema. One was you didn't know if the food was going to be great or going to be like worse than average. The other one was always consistently average. So if you didn't want to be surprised and didn't want to gamble, you went to the one.
Right.
If you were like, you know what, maybe it's going to be really good, you went to the first one.
That makes sense. Yeah. This is better than most Pinots.
Well, it's very different from most Pinots, and it's approaching.
I shouldn't say that it's better. I like it because it's not like other.
Well,
Pinots.
And the thing is I would put it on a quality level with other Pinots that I've had. It's just so strikingly different. Well, this is much more like you know what this reminded me of? Maybe more so than Syrah's Grenache. Because that sort of lighter,
but especially that vanilla on the back end, kind of that's definitely more of a Grenache thing.
Yeah, but also just
or at least from the places that I'll drink Grenache, because if it's not in oak, I'm not touching it.
Well,
which
and
is
imagine
interesting
this
because this is also another thing where they're doing more oak than I would normally see, and so I'm quite willing to drink this in the same way that I'm not a huge Grenache fan, but I love Alto Moncoya's Grenaches because of the 2 to 3 years in oak.
And you also like Chateauneuf de Pape's, which have a fair, but some of them are close to 100% Grenache and are also oak aged. So yeah, I'd say for you with Grenache, like pretty much most of the red wines that you like, maybe a few exceptions here and there, like some really, really high tannin grapes. But by and large, you're going to want some oak aging behind them.
I do.
However, with Grenache, it's not only that you like it, it's that it's necessary in order to make the grape palatable for me.
I mean, I can drink Grenache that hasn't been. I can drink anything, really. But, I'm not going back and looking for that ever again.
Well, right. But, you could take a really good Napa Cab and give it little to no oak, and it would still be high-powered, high tannin. You could take one of the best-grown Grenaches, and it's still going to have very little tannin. It's just not a tannic grape varietal. Like you can, I don't know exactly how you measure overall tannic structure in a wine. I guess it's by tannic acid and its derivatives. But you can just look at it and be like, oh yeah, you could measure that scientifically. I don't know how, but it can be done.
Well, the 72 Chateau de Pape that I have that they found in cement.
Yep.
They drank it and opted not to put it at any time in oak because it was already tannic enough.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is that after that long, even in stainless steel, although not stainless steel, in cement. Cement is an impermeable oxygen barrier, but there was some oxygen seeping in, there was some oxygen already in the headspace. That wine had aged. Putting it in oak represents a terrific gamble because the surface area of a barrel is very, very small. You're letting in a lot more oxygen over that year and a half, however long you keep it in there. And so it was probably not just that the wine was tannic enough. It's like, do we really want to age this more?
No, we can get $100 a pop for this right now, and what if it doesn't taste good?
What if we ruin it?
Yeah, what if we ruin it? Then we lose everything.
That would be my fear.
I mean, Xavier knows what they're doing. So I'm going to trust that they made the right choice, period.
Right.
And they found it, and let's hold off until we finish this, as we said we were gonna, and give it a chance to open up even more.
Sure. Yeah, no, and that's the kind of thing with winemaking that I think is undervalued. And I've mentioned this in other videos. Rick Hall said that he is not an interventionist winemaker. In other words, he's not there to step in and go, okay, I have to correct all this stuff that happened. It's like, okay, well, we got it. Maybe it's not ideal, but what is ideal? You know, if the wine's acidity is within acceptable levels and it's at the right sugar weighted harvest, and its flavor and aroma are just different from what we expected, let's roll with it. Let's see what we can do with this. Do we want to blend it? Do we want to go, hey, this is just a really atypical Cab Franc, Merlot, whatever it is.
Put a special label on it so it doesn't bring down our old quality that we usually get, or put a special label on it and charge more because this year it turned out better.
It's different, yeah. Well, and that's where interface with the tasting room is so important because one of the things I always did with customers and what I would go, hey, this is a very different Cab Franc. It's even by Virginia Cab Franc standards, it's lighter, but it's got these floral things that are going on that are very different from the bell pepper type of stuff. So give it a shot, and letting customers know that kind of thing ahead of time doesn't necessarily bias them to like the wine, but it's like, okay, I'm dealing with something that's a little different here. So whether I like it or whether I don't like it, at least I'm not like, what is going on?
Here at Bellamy, we're French, so we don't like oak on our wines. And I'm just like, and my wife's banging at me, and I mentioned that last week. I still can't get past that.
Well, and the thing is that depending on the part of France they came from, they might use no oak in there. Like the Loire Valley. If you're growing white wines in the Loire, maybe some Sauvignon Blancs, but very little.
This was their cab.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then I have no idea.
Cab Sab. I don't know what they were thinking.
Well, and that's the other thing about tasting room staff is that if you do not train your tasting room staff carefully, and I'm not saying to turn them into robots.
I asked them. It was on the script.
Oh,
they weren't making it up on their own.
They weren't going off the reservation.
No,
okay.
They were not.
When I worked at Chateau, the number of people that went off the reservation and the stuff that they would come up with. Have you ever heard like a 5 or 6 year old kid just say something and you're like, "Where did you get that from?" And I don't know. That was how working at the Chateau
Today our Pinot Noir
is like Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah. Oh yeah, my favorite was when they would invent scientific facts about the wine, like our Viognier was kept in oak. No, it wasn't. This is a lighter bodied white wine. It's one of the heavier white grapes that there is, and it was just like it would like bip 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 in a row, said with utter confidence. Where is this coming from? And that's why I compared it to a kid, because you'll hear a kid say something with utter certainty.
There was stuff I was saying when we first started, about how the higher you are, the less I'm going to like the wine. Well, that's actually, I've now realized not quite all that true.
Right.
And that you can make good wines at sea level and at 5,000 feet if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, look at Bordeaux. Bordeaux is a peninsula the Médoc part of the peninsula was built by the Dutch. The French brought them in there. And if you want to hire a group of people that's going to be able to keep seawater out of your vineyards, you want to hire the Dutch. And they built an entire peninsula. And so that peninsula, I think, is like maybe 400 years old, and I guess they started growing grapes there as soon as like they had enough soil to do so. But the funny thing is that we think of Bordeaux as like this sort of one of the, not the only, but an exemplar of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. And it's this recently invented peninsula. It's, I don't know how far above sea level it is, but it's not very much.
Yeah.
And they're right on the ocean. They're right on the ocean. And so whenever people are like, oh, you can grow grapes that close to the ocean, I'm like, well, it works fine for the Bordelais.
Yep.
They must be doing something right.
No, actually, one of the things I'm having fun about, I've always drank wines, and I know which ones I like, and I'm very good at telling you what they taste like, and what I'm getting on the nose and the mid-range, all that crap. But the truth of the matter is, I never really looked very far into the vineyards, which I'm doing now every week, and it's like, wow, I didn't know crap.
Well, and that's the fun thing about wine is I tell people it's kind of like a musical composition. There's the vertical part where you're looking at the overall structure. On a piano it'd be like the left hand, the right hand, and then with the entire band you're looking at the guitar and the keyboard and the bass and the drummer. But then there's the horizontal part, which is, you're watching it in motion. And so the vertical part for us is like, okay, production notes. Where are the vineyards? Where are they located? What's the soil composition like? What was the final pH
Lots
and so
of
forth?
slate with this one.
But then there's also the horizontal, which is the history of the company, how many winemakers they've had and their different visions for what the wines are. If we're lucky enough, like Warren is, to have numerous vintages from the same producer, that gives you a moving picture rather than just a snapshot.
And with some vineyards, if I like them, I do find their older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just heard from Randall that 3 bottles of Doubleback have just arrived.
Oh, excellent, cool.
So I'll buy all 3.
Which
of
vintage
those.
do you know?
I think it's a 2018, but I'm not certain.
Which one did we like better? Was it the 2016?
I like the 2018 better.
You like the 2018 better. That's right. Yeah,
I remember being surprised by that.
Yeah, because normally with you would, all other things being equal, generally you like the older vintages. Although there's
usually
variation.
Although when they're just 5 or 7 years old, then it doesn't play as much.
Yeah, they're going to be more similar at that.
It's a bit tartar. I'm starting to get more tannin.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting more red fruit now that it's opening up.
Yeah, there's a lot of red fruit.
So I think a lot of that dark fruit character might have been born maybe more of the temperature than anything else, although possibly a result of opening up.
Yeah, so now we can finish this bit and try the next glass.
This is actually a really pleasant wine.
Yeah, it's not as complex as what I'm looking for when I.
It's a great food wine, though. I can tell you that from the acidity.
It'd be a great table wine for sure.
Well, and the acidity is tart and it's present without being, like, you can drink this on its own. And Warren and I often do drink wines on our own because we're looking for, the flavor and aroma and the structure.
And I don't want to think that the spice on the back end had anything to do with the wine if it was the pepperoni on the pizza.
Yep. And that's the thing.
And I have done that.
Well, that's the thing. Wines compare wonderfully with food, but it's not going to tell you so much about the wine as it's going to tell you about the wine and food pairing.
It's the pairing that you get the feel for. And there's, that's a definite place that's worth knowing and definite information. It's just not the information we're trying to share with you because we don't want plates of food. It's a pain in the butt to deal with that.
It is fun, though. I'm getting like a perfumey kind of almost floral. It's subtle, but I'm getting it. It's like a violet-y kind of.
Yes, violets, definitely.
And that's all probably a result of it warming up and also probably from it being, from pouring it into the
I think you mentioned cranberry, but there's just a bit of that when it's wrapped with the violet.
Yep.
The two are happening at the same time to me in the same place in my mouth.
See, the violet, that little subtle floral character, that is that is definitely a result of the Pinot. And it's interesting that getting put in the oak didn't wipe that out. Because normally floral character...
Now, it wasn't there in the first sip, but now that we've let it open a little bit, and it's not as cold... I think I've explained before that I have a bermed-in shed that's like 20 by 10.
Yeah.
And it's bermed in, so it never gets below 40. It never gets above 70. But this is probably, when I brought it over, it was probably still around 50.
Right.
So, because it's December right now when we're filming this. It won't be. It'll probably be February when you see this. It'll be colder still.
Yeah.
But... I meant to bring it in last night so that it would come up to put it in a cooler room, get it up around 60. But I didn't do that.
Kind of actually, in some ways, again, this is one of those things I like showing people is that the temperature you serve a wine at versus the temperature you drink it at, and watching it evolve, not just the opening up but also the warming up, it plays such a crucial role. I tell people if you're able to, I think I've gone over the 15-minute rule before. With white wines, you keep it in the fridge until it's cold and then take it out 15 minutes before you serve it.
I don't think you've done it on film. I don't think you've done it on camera. I don't think so.
I heard this years ago. I can't remember even where I learned it or who I learned it from, but somebody told me that he put his white wines in the fridge until they were fridge temperatures, about 40 degrees, and he would take them out about 15 minutes before serving. And with red wines, he would put them in the fridge 15 minutes before opening.
Yep.
And I really like that because what it does is that it lets the white, because the thing is, unless a white wine is super, super sweet, you don't really want to serve it at 40 degrees. You want to serve it between 45 and 50-ish.
Yeah.
White wines you're going to drink a little quicker, so you don't have to worry about them warming up in the glass as much. And you can always get a chiller or stick it back in the fridge if you want. With red wines, you want to impart a little bit of a chill because that warming up in the glass, that serving it at 60 degrees, if you don't believe me, try drinking a bottle of wine that's been served at like 72, 75 degrees. It's not pleasant. I highly recommend against drinking, unless you like that sort of thing.
Yeah, and Will and I sometimes drink whites warm so that we can get more of what's in there. We can taste it because the coldness on your tongue does kind of shock your tongue and make it harder for your tongue to really tell you what you're tasting.
If you're having an oak-aged white especially, like that Semillon that we had that had spent some time in oak, and any oak-aged Chardonnay, what oak does is it imparts tannin, but oak also has bittering compounds, and then there's a whole family of compounds that impart bitterness to a wine. And you don't notice them as much when the wine is warm, but when it's cold, they pop right out at you. And if the wine were sweet, the sweetness, it's kind of like putting sugar in your coffee. The sweetness will cancel out a little bit. If the wine's dry, there's nothing in the way of that. So you have the Chardonnay, and you're trying to taste all these really interesting, oak and fruit-derived flavors, but the bitterness is just getting in the way of that at 40 degrees. To me, there are a few things worse than a red wine served at 75 degrees or a oaky, buttery Chardonnay served at 40 degrees. You don't want either of them. You want them somewhere in the middle. 55 degrees is usually kind of perfect for both, I think, honestly. Though I guess with a lot of lighter-bodied white wines, you want to go a little bit colder.
Yeah, this is
really pleasant. It's different. It's super different.
Well, I thought if I was going to do Pinot, I did not want to do your traditional.
No.
But now we've done a Pinot.
It's reminding me a little bit. I know I've compared it to 3 Rhone varietals. I've compared it to Syrah. I've compared it to Grenache. I'm now going to step out on a limb and say there's a little bit of Monastrell. It's not super heavy bodied or.
It's less funky than Monastrell by a lot.
It is less funky, but there's that slight jammy vegetal, jammy stemmy component that is reminding me vaguely of when a wine has like 10 to 15% Monastrell, and it's there, it's present, but it's not defining the entire wine. And the funkiness for me, on the palate at least, has not fully abated. Like this still has some.
I don't get as much funk on the palate as I did on the nose.
Oh, really?
It's very, very light. I mean, it's there. I'm aware of it, but it's not really impacting. And I have to ask myself, am I tasting that?
It's a slight amount of Brett, I would guess, because this was kept in oak. Whenever you age wine in oak, you're basically always running the risk of Brett. And the question is not whether it's going to happen; it's in what proportion it's going to happen.
All right, folks.
It's wintertime.
Yeah. And it's really, the fog has just rolled in. When I pulled in here, I'm looking out Will's window that we had to cover up last week, and I could see cars going by. Now I can't even see the road.
No, the road is not visible. And I live maybe 30, 40 feet from the road, so that tells you.
Fortunately, I only live over one street from Will, so I'll be able to, I hope, get home without any real troubles.
If I had that Hammacher Schlemmer hovercraft, I could actually get to your house really easily, because at that corner of Christie and Fairview Church Road, if I just kept going down that or over that gully and just straight ahead, I think I would be at your house in like maybe 30 seconds, maybe less. Guess it would depend how fast the thing can fly.
Yeah. We don't live close enough to walk to each other's house,
unfortunately.
But it takes like 3 minutes.
Yep. We could walk.
We could.
Yeah. How far? I guess we live it's like, what, 3 miles maybe?
Right, now we live less than a mile from each other,
right.
But you have to drive to the end of the road, come down, and then come all the way back on my road, because there is no road going through the middle.
A good chunk of that
there kind of is, but it's dirt, so nobody wants to use it.
A good chunk of that, as the crow flies, is a huge, awful, brush-laden gully in between my road and his. Yep. So only the crows can fly it. Yeah, this is... So, Full disclosure, I've never had. Well, I don't want to say I've never had a German Pinot Noir because
I've never had a German Pinot
Noir. I probably
Noir.
have, but they didn't stick in my brain. Obviously,
at least I don't think I have.
I've had Austrian Spätburgunder, which is the same thing as Pinot Noir, and although Austria and Germany are similar in a lot of ways culturally and in some ways climatically, Austrian red wines are not. I don't want to say all of them aren't like this, but a lot of them are not like this. And probably a lot of that has to do with the oak aging. The Austrian red wines that you find on the market are by and large not kept in oak, or if they are, it's not for very long.
They're not charging $70 for this wine by accident.
No.
It's a good wine.
It's
better than a lot of...
The thing is what I find myself wondering is this is a hard wine to market because it's not... People who like Pinot Noir are not necessarily looking for this, and people who are looking for this aren't necessarily looking for Pinot Noir.
Right, I'd never picked this up, except that I knew that it was time for us to do a Pinot Noir. and when I
for the saving of thine honesty.
I'm over in the Riesling section grabbing some Rieslings, and I saw this, and I pick it up, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And Randall's, yeah, it's pretty good. And I'm like,
yep.
All right. I'm looking at the price. I pull it up in Vivino. It seems kind of interesting, so I buy it.
There's a couple of German native red varietals. I think Dornfelder is one of them, and I can't remember. There's a couple of others. But Blauburgunder, I think, is their name for Pinot Meunier. But anyway, they have basically there's a bunch of German red grapes that are the equivalent of French grapes, but they have German names. And I was telling Warren, when my dad went to Austria, I can't remember when it was years and years ago. He was like, do you want me to bring you back any Austrian wine that I actually got in Austria? And I said, yeah, I want a Spätburgunder. And he said, okay, what's that? And I said, well, it's the Austrian word for Pinot Noir. He came back from Austria with a Pinot Noir. And he said, I tried really hard to find a Spätburgunder, but they all say Pinot... He's like, I'm glad you told me what it was, but they all say Pinot Noir on the label. And I was telling Warren, I think that what happened is sometime, I'm guessing probably around the time that I entered the wine world, German and Austrian wineries began realizing they could sell a lot more wine if they just put the French name of the grape on their
Americans
on the label.
are just worthless when it comes to wine. I mean, you have to realize that for a long time, Merlot was the #1 selling grape in America,
right?
Because it was the easiest to pronounce. When they asked people, they did a study on this.
Yeah.
Why did you buy that? Well, I wasn't embarrassed to ask for it because I know how to say Merlot.
Yep.
And then there's this, Sideways movie comes along and it makes fun of Merlot, but the real thing it's making fun of is the guy who's making fun of Merlot, not realizing that his favorite wine is a Merlot because they don't call it that. And Americans, of course, miss the subtlety, and Merlot tanks. Goes from #1 to nobody. I mean, they ripped out hectares or acres of it because they couldn't sell it because of that movie, because we're not subtle enough to get even that straight a joke.
Well, and the other thing I tell people is that if you watch Sideways, the guy who loves Pinot Noir and can't stand Merlot and is constantly talking about how horrible Merlot is, this is also the guy that when he's drunk picks up the dump bucket and just swigs it. This guy is not the main character. He is
not a reliable narrator.
No, he's not. And he's not... Also, the author...
But Americans are that dumb. We don't get that.
I mean, the author himself said it wasn't meant to be a referendum on Merlot. It was a character in a movie. It's like... I mean, I guess sometimes if you really look up to
Merlot's only just starting to recover in America.
Which is nuts, because you're exactly right. When I was I started in the industry in 2007, and that movie was all over the place. And we had a really nice Merlot. We had actually two Merlots. We had two. It was the 2003 and the 2004, and so we were pouring both of them side by side because what we were trying to do is sell out the 2003 so we could sell the 2004. But we're like, you know what? Let's give people a side by side comparison. Yep. And what was really interesting is the number of people who were just constantly referencing Sideways. And it's like, you do realize that, like, that's just it's not even a documentary it's just a fiction movie, and it just happened to refer to that. If they'd been referring to Kobe beef or something, it wouldn't have registered on your radar. But it's because it's a varietal you see everywhere, it entered everyone's consciousness.
And unfortunately, he didn't point out at the end when the guy's sitting alone, drinking the greatest wine ever out of a what is the word I'm looking for? Cup. Cardboard.
Styrofoam?
Styrofoam cup. He was drinking a Merlot.
Yeah.
So that was the joke. This dude thinks this is the greatest wine. Merlot sucks. It is Merlot, but it doesn't call itself Merlot, so he doesn't know. And that destroyed the Merlot industry.
Yep.
That's craziness.
Well,
the joke was dude doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
Reality was Americans thought he did, and so now we don't drink Merlot.
Well, and that's also part and parcel of the American response to things like that. Is we look for a spokesperson, and then we go, okay, what does this guy like? And it's like, okay, well, hold on. That guy likes that thing. That doesn't mean the thing is bad. It'd be the equivalent of if you made a movie and people all of a sudden Cabernet sales skyrocketed and Pinot Noir sales plummeted. You'd be saying, no, I'm not saying don't buy Pinot Noir. I'm just saying I don't personally like it. It doesn't do anything for me.
But the thing was, he wasn't even right about that. I don't personally like, I mean, it could have come down to, I don't personally like Merlot. But he does. He just, when he hears the wrong name on it, he's not trusting his tongue.
Right.
He's drinking it with his intellect, and you can't drink wine with your intellect. You
just
can't.
And that's why it's this. Whenever I tell people, they're like, what's your favorite type of wine or your favorite varietal? And I'm not trying to be cute or be coy or be evasive when I say that's hard to answer, because there are certain varietals that I really have a fondness for. But there's, like, Virginia Viognier, to me, is very, very different from, like, Australian Viognier. I
love Viognier, as long as it's only 5% and it's in my Syrah.
Yeah. But the how it's treated, where it's grown, all these things play into it. So it's like asking what my favorite grape is it's like where, on what instrument is the song being played, what are the circumstances, and all of those things factor into. And I think that there is this, not just American, there's a human tendency to be reductionist about such things and go, okay, let's boil it down to, and it's like, you can't really do that with wine.
This is actually getting better.
Yeah, absolutely is.
So I also wanted to show you that, we got a fair, how do I get that?
There we go.
We have a fair amount of aging from this, even though it's only been in a bottle for 3 years.
Yeah.
But I think the 2 years in oak is part of what we're getting there.
Absolutely. And I would be very interested to know about the climate in which the grapes were grown, because this is darker. I mean,
it's right on the left bank of the river that runs into the Moselle, just before it runs into the Moselle. I mean, I saw that. A lot of the stuff, I get a lot more information than I share with you guys, because I get sucked in and I read it. But I'm not going to be it's at 3,000 feet instead of 2,000 feet guy, because I don't really know enough about that, and I don't want to talk out of my hat.
Right.
And I just changed words there in a moment to keep this friendly, family friendly, and to our, not our sponsors, we don't have any sponsors.
Our affiliates.
Our affiliate program friendly, where they don't want to hear me swear, or anybody else for that matter.
Which is funny, because we talk about this being family friendly. I'm like,
it's wine. I don't want your kid to be drinking.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure families are tuning in to listen.
Right, and it's like every time, is this made for children? I'm like, I hope not. When we put it up on YouTube.
It's funny though. I was at a wine dinner over the summer, and I ran into this really cool British dude. He had actually worked at Buckingham Palace. I don't know exactly what his job was, but he had the right accent. I could tell that he had been some kind of higher level government employee. Super nice guy, super down to earth, very funny in the way that only British people can be. And
I'm not dead yet.
Yeah, he and his wife were telling me about their son who's 11 years old. And just like my father did with me, they give him little glasses of wine at dinner. And he's become really, really good. The thing is, kids have sensitive taste buds. He's become really good at picking out aromas and flavors.
Oh, interesting.
And he wants to be a sommelier.
Okay.
At 11. I was like, that's awesome. There's no taboo associated with it for him. There's none of the, you can't do that. It's bad. It's evil.
When we were living in Malta, we went out to a restaurant, and my daughter was 16. And we came up to her, and they're like, would you like a glass of wine? Would you like a glass for the wine? Because I bought a nice bottle of wine. And she was like, I'm only 16. And they're like,
okay. And?
The drinking age is 15.
Right.
And she was like, oh, no.
Because your daughter's a teetotaler.
Right. But my granddaughter, who's a year older than my daughter, figure that one out. We went to Ireland, and she was just like, I'm old enough to drink. Yep. She was 19. And then forward a couple of years, we were just in Ireland, this year, but this year's not over with yet. Yeah. And so I've got my 18-year-old daughter and my 19-year-old granddaughter, and my granddaughter's like, come on, we're going to go have a beer. Yeah. I can drink legally, where my daughter's just like, nobody should drink. And I'm like, okay. So we went, and it was amusing, because we walk into a real Irish pub in Ireland. Actually, I think we were in, where were we? Donegal. We were
Donegal.
in Donegal.
Love Donegal.
I don't remember what the name of the town was. It wasn't the town we were staying in. It was the next town over. And she orders a Guinness. And he's like, for you? I'm like, oh, I'm going to drink a Guinness. Oh, great. 2 Guinness. I'm like, no, 1 Guinness. He was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, my granddaughter's never had a Guinness. I'm pretty damn sure I'm finishing that Guinness. And then she'll order something else. So she had 1 sip of Guinness. Boom, there's a Guinness in my hand. She wasn't having anything to do with it. Right. She was like, it made my tongue want to leave my head. So she's like, it just curled up and wanted to die. And so she ended up with a Swedish cider.
Yep.
You know, they make really, by the way, the Swedes make great ciders.
I can believe that.
I had a number of their ciders, which the one I've never had an American cider that came close to what she was drinking with those. Now she was only drinking 1 with dinner and maybe 1 before bed. So 1 to 2 ciders 3 or 4 days a week. You know, she was really totally responsible, which I thought was great.
Well, and the thing is at that age, I feel like if you're the kind of kid who's been brought up where it's like, to your parents trust you, even if you're brought up in the American taboo alcohol culture, if you have that kind of mindset, it's like, all right, I want to be responsible about this, not just because I'm a responsible person, but I want to prove that the loyalty to me is well founded.
Very responsible in our family around drinking.
Right.
You know, I drink way less now that I do this.
Right.
Which is kind of, I know, odd, but
no, we schedule it.
The right thing.
We schedule it,
and
it makes it different.
Yeah. And now it's funny because I got a 2003 Riesling to open with her because that was the year she was born when she turns 21. Which seems kind of silly now to wait because, you know, I've been drinking in pubs with her in Ireland.
On the other hand, the fact that
we weren't like getting wasted. It was because
when it's legal here in America, there is that milestone moment where it's like, okay, now you can go out in America.
Your first legal drink, but it won't be your first legal drink. It'll be your first legal drink in America.
In America, yeah.
And I'm just like, why are we waiting? I don't want to open that puppy. That's a really good. It's a Maxford Richter from 2003. You know.
Fun fact about Ireland and Britain: if she's with you, her grandfather, and she were 16 and she ordered a beer, nobody would stop her. Nobody would cart her. Yep. Nobody. Because the thing is the
same in Malta.
The only time they ever bust you for underage drinking in Britain or Ireland is when you've done something wrong. Like if you're 16 years old and you go to the pub,
it's a tack on.
But if you go to the pub and you're 16 years old and you look like you're 18 or you look close enough and you order a beer and you behave yourself, nobody.
They don't have the $1,500 fine for serving minors either.
No, but they do have, like, they probably have some kind of public intoxication that is a tack on, too, if you fight somebody or steal something.
And most of those countries have laws that allow children, you know, like over 12, to drink wine at dinner with their family.
Yep.
They can't walk in on their own and say, I'd like that bottle of wine. I enjoyed that last night with my parents. No, you can't do that. But Dad opens a bottle of wine and puts it out. They don't stop the tweeners and the teens from drinking with the family. It's not even, they don't even think about it.
Well, the idea being
even occur to them.
In that culture, there's no, especially if the parents like their booze, they're going to be like, there's no way I'm wasting too much wine on my 15-year-old. We're reserving the lion's share for the adults, but we'll let the kids join in so they feel special. Yeah. And the other thing that is to note is that it takes a while to develop a taste for certain types of things. It took me a while to learn how to like red wine, dark beer. It sounded like your granddaughter had the same reaction.
Yep.
And so one of the things is like, okay, we don't have to worry about the kids drinking as much because a lot of types of alcohol are acquired tastes. Yeah. Cider is a dangerous one. My dad still to this day does not like cider because he drank too much of it in Britain when he was 16. And got horribly sick.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of reaction...
Oh, yeah, gin for me. That's the thing. Now, one of the things that I find amusing is that Virginia has laws that if your beer has, 3.2%, you must label the amount of alcohol.
Oh, interesting.
If it has more than that, you can't. Illegal.
Oh, interesting.
You know, the reasoning I asked about that, and I was told when I called, I don't remember who I was talking to about it, was that, you know, they didn't want college students looking for the higher alcohol. But I'm like, but those are the IPAs, and they actually, if you put that percentage, they're less likely to buy it because they know it's like, oh, it's one of those bitter beers. I want this 3.4 or 4.2 or 5%. I know I like those. I've hated every one of the big ones I've ever had. So I'm always amused. I'm like, I get it, but people
they don't think that way.
They don't think that way.
No.
You know, it's like, that's how you drink whiskey. That's not how you drink beer.
Yeah, I was going to say, if a college student who wants to get drunk is not going to be looking
swill it. They'll just get themselves,
more of it.
They'll get themselves a funnel and a tube and force themselves to drink 3 beers in a minute and a half. That's how they're going to get drunk. They're not going to buy something that doesn't taste as good or as easy as approachable to them. I mean, it's one of the things I say when I'm drinking wine with people I know who aren't big wine drinkers. I'm bringing something approachable, not something I love. Because something I love, they can't. They haven't put the time in.
The people that I knew in college that got dangerously close to the level of alcohol where you get alcohol poisoning were not getting drunk on beer. They were getting drunk on big Solo cups full of ice and liquor.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that you put enough fruit juice or whatever kind of sweetener you're putting on top of liquor, it doesn't taste like alcohol anymore, and you'll just drink. And that's why the jungle juice thing.
I used to go to a thing they were called. It was, what the hell? I used to go to parties, and they had a thing called rocket fuel.
Is that in the trash can?
So you put it in a trash can, and some people put lights underneath it. Because what you do is then you drop a whole bunch of, are you ready for this? Dry ice.
Oh, yeah,
and then you pour grain alcohol and lemon and lime mix.
And it makes,
and you mix it up. And it makes smoke and the lights.
It looks really cool.
And you got disco music going and the lights are going. And that is so freaking cold, you can't taste it. Now, the alcohol you dropped in is like it's like 98 proof. It's 100 and,
it's like the Everclear.
Yeah, it's just pure alcohol, essentially, and you got a little flavor with, but your tongue is so freaking cold because it is really cold. You can't. People would get so. I used to go to these things when I was much younger, and people would just get so annihilated.
Well, and that's the thing.
It was easy.
If you can look at college parties and tell who has been drinking beer.
These were actually science fiction parties.
Okay, nice.
At conventions, yeah.
Oh, yeah, rocket fuel. There you go. But the people who are drunk on beer, they're stumbling.
And lights, and technology.
The beer people are stumbling around, they're slurring, but they're conscious and they're more or less on their own 2 feet. The liquor people are the ones that are passed out or are lying down with their eyes closed and are mumbling incoherently. And those are the ones that you have to worry about being a risk to themselves of dying.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons they have what they would do at William and Mary if you were a freshman and you got caught drinking. They actually would. I thought it was really interesting.
They would look into what you drank.
They would send you to alcohol safety programs.
Right.
And what was interesting is the number of people who went and they were like grousing about it. And they came back and like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Nobody ever explained it to me like this in high school. And it was always fascinating to me. Like they would go into this attitude of like, I don't want to be here. I'm just here because I got in trouble. And then they would come out being like, I don't want to stop drinking, but I do want to be more careful. I don't want to die my freshman year of college.
I remember, I was in a rock and roll metal band in the 80s. Mm-hmm. If you look back on the guys who were in the bands in the 80s and the guys who were in the bands, the grunge bands in the 90s, and you realize that the guys in the hair bands are mostly, with the exception of like the singer from Quiet Riot who OD'd on coke, mostly they didn't die because it's hard to OD on coke.
Yeah.
You have to work at it.
Well, and you
Whereas
also
heroin,
a lot more likely
which is
to run
what
out
the
of
guys,
money.
well, and the guys in the 90s were all doing heroin.
Yeah.
Well, it's really easy to kill yourself.
Absolutely.
So when I think of like guys who didn't die of cancer, guys who died from their addictions, I can think of one hairband guy who died of coke.
Right.
But I can come up with a half dozen, if not a dozen, grunge guys who died from heroin, but these guys are like 5 to 10 years older than us,
right?
I mean, younger than us, and they're dropping dead because their choice, like we were talking about, the choice if you're doing the hard stuff, you're doing whiskey or rum when you're at the parties as a college student versus drinking a lot of beer or wine, you're going to get where you're going a whole lot faster with the harder stuff.
Well, and the other thing about coke is that by and large the negative effects associated with the drug aren't the direct result of the drug itself, it's the result of your behavior while you're on the drug, so like fighting people
so in the morning when you wake up, you're like, oh my god, I did not do well. You just stop doing it.
Right. Well, that's the thing. You
don't wake up when you did the heroin. You just don't.
Well, and the other thing is that heroin is not giving you the same social feedback loop, because with coke, like you said, you come down and you're like, oh my gosh, did I really say all those things that I sort of fight with 5 people?
Do I really think I'm God?
Yeah. Whereas with heroin, there's nothing about the people around you telling it's like, oh yeah, he fell asleep early, because if
he sat in the corner and died.
Yeah, if you're cagey about your addiction, your friends might not even know that you're using, or if you are using, that you're not using all that often. And so that same, you don't have any guardrails to slam into. You just go off the cliff. There's nothing to tell you that you misbehaved or did something that was out of the ordinary.
Oh, what's worse is it's just easier to buy bad heroin than bad coke, because nobody wants to really sell you strong coke.
These
they want to
days
step
with fentanyl.
on it. Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do any of those drugs, so it doesn't really matter to me. But
back in the 80s and 90s when you were talking about, yes, absolutely.
Everybody did.
The only thing you had to worry about was the coke just being more stepped on and thus weaker.
Well, you also had to be careful because that was how Kevin DuBrow died, the singer for Quiet Riot.
Speedball?
No. They decided not to cut it because he was a rock star and they wanted to do him a favor. I remember the Celtics had a player, I don't remember his name anymore, and he died the night he was drafted. Yeah. Or the night after he was at a party, and somebody didn't step on the coke, and he was doing what he thought. Yeah. You know, the normal amount he would do, and it killed him dead because it was straight up coke. There was no baby laxative or whatever they cut it with.
Milk sugar.
None of that was in there. So he was doing 10 times as much as he thought he was doing.
Right.
So that's the problem, and that's much more likely to happen with heroin than it is with coke.
Well, it's like you with the drinks.
Talking about this.
It's like you and the drinks at Dogtown.
I started this, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, gosh. So I'm a big tipper. I know that might be hard to believe, but I am. I tip. Like, you know, when COVID was happening and before everything was closed down, I realized these people were risking their lives and they weren't getting paid. So I was tipping everybody $100, no matter what. Oh, it's $20. Here's $100. You know, I was just tipping away. One night, I'm at my favorite. I'm not going to say who it is because it could get them in trouble. Yeah. I'm at one of my favorite watering holes, and I have literally, in the course of an hour, I have 2 or 3 bourbon and Cokes.
I think it was just 2.
I think it was just 2. I drive home. I'm okay. Everything's fine. I walk in, talking with my wife. Everything's fine. 5 minutes later, she's like, "You're wasted." And I'm like, "Holy crap, I am. What's going on?" So I asked the bartender, and the next day or next time I went in, and she was like, "Well, they were 5-shot drinks. You're a good tipper. I wanted to do right by you." And I'm like, "Give me 10 shots in an hour when I'm thinking I got 2 and I can drive home safely. That's not okay."
Luckily, he got home before they really
they hadn't
kicked
hit.
in.
I was still sober when I pulled into my driveway. Now, if I got pulled over, I probably wouldn't have blown sober.
You would not have blown sober, but
it hadn't had time to get through my system. Yep. Fortunately, I left early. If I'd stayed an extra half hour because somebody walked in that I knew and I just wanted to talk, I couldn't have gotten home.
No,
but of course, I would have also realized that.
Right,
I would have been like 15 minutes later, going, "What's going on?"
Yeah, wait a minute, I can't. Something. Happened.
Yeah. So that can happen. It has happened to me, and in fact, I now no longer will let people pour a drink that I don't watch when I'm in a bar. Not because I'm getting roofied, but because these people want to be nice to me because I'm nice to them, and so I have to be careful about that. I know my wife and I were watching a show somewhere, and I ordered a rum and Coke, and she's like, "You don't order hard stuff out." I'm like, "We've never been here before."
You're right. I don't have to worry about them giving me a 5-shot drink.
They don't know me. She was like, "Oh," I'm like, "When we come back, I'll have to worry about this because I'm going to tip them."
Right.
But in the meantime, my minimum tip is generally 30%, 50 if I'm happy with you, 100 if you were great, or I realize you're having a crappy night, and everybody's giving you a hard time for something. When people are like, "Where's my food?" She's not cooking your food, bro. I'm not going to tip you. She's not cooking your food, bro.
Yeah.
All she's doing is delivering an order and then bringing it to you when it's done. All these issues you're having, they're not her. She's making $2 an hour, $2.50 an hour, and she's counting on your tips. And if you don't tip her because you didn't get bad service, you got bad kitchen service, not bad frontline service. She's not the person that you do that to. But of course, everybody in America does. And then there's also right now everyone's getting pounded on gas prices and other things, and I've talked with a number of my friends who are waiters and waitresses, and people aren't not going out, they're just tipping less so they can still go out.
Service culture has gotten way worse since COVID, unfortunately. And I was kind of hoping it would get better, but then I realized a lot of the people that were the angriest about COVID were also people by and large, and I don't want to generalize too much, but by and large, the people who were better tippers were also the people who were the most worried about the pandemic.
And they're staying home.
Yeah, and they're going out
because there was a point at which I'm like, well, I'm not going out anymore, and I felt horrible because I wanted to go out, mostly to tip my friends so they'd have more money to pay their bills, than any actual need to go out. The other thing is Sundays suck for most most servers,
Correct.
especially around noon, because
the church crowd.
The church crowd shows up and they say, "I give 10% to Jesus. I'm not giving you 20%."
Mm-hmm.
Well, dude, you give 10% to Jesus of every dime you make. You're not giving her 20% of every dime you make, just to your freaking bill.
Just to
There's
your
a
bill.
huge difference. Don't do that.
And they're probably also not giving Jesus 10% of anything.
No, they're probably not.
Yeah.
By the way, watch Wednesday. It's really cool.
What is it?
Wednesday.
Yeah, I've heard great things about it.
I've only watched the first 2 episodes, but I've really enjoyed it. We're watching 1 episode a week. We try not to bogart everything.
Only good reactions to it from people whose opinions I don't trust.
It's tough because a lot of people are banging on the guy playing
Gomez?
Yeah. Because he's Hispanic, which is stupid.
Isn't Gomez Hispanic?
Yeah, of course. Well, Gomez's name is, but Adams isn't.
Okay.
But if you look at the drawing from the Adam,
maybe his dad wasn't.
But if you look at the guy who actually drew them in the original, they all look like he's Hispanic.
Yeah.
But the real problem for me, so a lot of people are banging on saying he shouldn't be doing this, and he's not good enough, but. For me, he shouldn't be doing it because he's not Raul Julia. But of course, that dude was also Hispanic. So for me, the problem isn't that he's Hispanic. It's that the last person who did the job was like so good that I don't care if you're Hispanic or you're German or you've
got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, you're English. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to like step up and make anybody forget about Raul Julia. The dude was a freaking physical genius as far as his acting went, and he was a great actor on top of it. If he wasn't doing the physical stuff, he was so good. Sean Austin, if he had not been first, couldn't. Was it Sean Austin or is Sean Austin his son? I always get those two mixed up.
You're talking about Wednesday?
No, I'm talking about the original television series.
Oh,
Austin,
I don't know.
Sean may have been his son. I forget his first name. Sean Austin, who played Samwise.
It would have been his dad, whose name I can't remember.
Yeah, it was his dad. I don't remember his first name, but Austin. He was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But once Julia did it, man, forget it. I mean, I'm sure somebody someday will come along who could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe even get hired to do it. But it's not the dude doing it now. I mean, he's so understated. And I get being an understated actor. There's a lot to be said for it. But Julia just put so much joy in the role that it's hard for anybody else to do it.
Doesn't the new actor physically resemble the original Gomez from the comics?
Much more.
And I think that's what they were. My understanding is that that's what they were going for.
And he's a damn good actor.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have any chemistry with the woman that he's playing.
Right. And that's fortunately,
that's
like
such a tiny amount of it because it's Wednesday off at college. So the fact that these two people don't really seem to have much chemistry and this guy's no Raul Julia is okay because it's not really that important.
Right.
Because it's all her at a boarding school. It's really her at Hogwarts, if you will. That's really what they're doing there because everybody's over Hogwarts because of...
We needed to transfer it to somewhere else.
Because we can't have this trans hate and be okay with it. We can't. We shouldn't. It's wrong.
Yeah.
And so...
But we need Hogwarts because we've got that semi-legal addiction. Yeah.
Yeah. So here it is. That's what they're doing, I think, with Wednesday. But I recommend it.
So... My final thoughts on this one...
that to, making sure they see this.
Yeah. My final thoughts are that perfume has become more integrated into the overall...
Oh, I can smell the violets on the nose now, and it was not on the nose when we first opened the bottle.
No, it was not. So overall, it's become better integrated.
And there's way, way less bramble on the nose.
Yeah.
Now.
I would say more bramble on the palate.
There's still some bramble on the nose, but it was like kind of really... obvious.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like underneath. It's very subtle.
Oddly enough,
and if you don't understand what that means when we say bramble, then you won't even find it.
Right. Yeah. Well, the bramble is just if you ever want to know what bramble smells like, just go out and find yourself a bunch of blackberry vine, any kind of vine, and just cut a whole bunch of them and just inhale that green scent. That's what we're talking about.
I don't know what to say about the mouthfeel. It's not kind of like
it's tart.
Silky.
It's tart.
Not juicy.
It's tart.
It's a bit tart. It's a bit tart.
The acidity on this is quite high. And what's interesting is that as the wine has gotten warmer... Which is interesting
because they said 0 pH.
Yeah. Oh, that's low. That's really freaking low. Yeah, the lower it gets, the more acidic it is.
Okay, gotcha.
The thing is that the
I'm still learning, folks.
The pH is the inverse logarithm not inverse. It's a negative logarithm
I
of
have
the
a degree in
hydrogen
English
ion
lit.
concentration.
Words. That's what that was to me. Words.
Water is 7, and the lower it gets, the more acidic it is, and the higher it gets, the more basic it is.
So it's 0. It's very high acidic.
Yeah, I mean, if
but it doesn't give me the smooth mouthfeel I'm used from, like the Washington stuff that's really low.
No,
really,
I mean,
really
this
acidic.
Is, well, it's German. The climate's probably one of the colder climates that Pinot's ever been grown in, which is interesting because the color was darker than Burgundy Burgundy and Washington wines are very see-through. You can see through this, but it is noticeably darker in color than I would normally associate.
It's not
with
garnet, but it's still, you got nice purple going on.
If we had this next to a Washington Pinot and a Burgundy, you would be able to see
how much darker
this is much darker. Yeah, it's closer to purple, even if it's still see-through. Overall, this is a really interesting addition to like what I think of as Pinot Noir.
If you want to drop 70 on a Pinot, here you go.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Drop 70 on a Pinot that is unlike any other Pinot that you've had.
Yep.
You know, this is the quality level is equivalent to what I would say a good Willamette or a good. I guess what's actually quality level. This might be better than some $70 Burgundies because Burgundies you have to drop a boatload of cash to get close to like. You have to close to double what Warren pays for like Napa cabs to get close to what I would call.
And I pay $100 to $600 a bottle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we were in
Burgundies are ridiculously expensive.
We were in Ireland, and the Burgundies I found I was actually brought to by a friend who lived there, who's from America, from Georgia, and he brought me to the best wine place in I want to say Wexford. And they had $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 bottles of French wines.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, give me the $100 Italian Amarone.
Yeah.
Because I know it's worth $100.
Yeah.
I'm
not
never
sure
going to
about
be
this.
sure about those. And the thing is, while I like Chateau de Paps and I like Chateau de Neufs, I don't like them as much as I like American Napa cabs.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all basically generally. Well, no, in some cases you're right. Some of them they're all oaked really well, so that's good.
Usually. And
lots of them are just Merlot and Cab blends, but some of them are, as you were saying, with the...
Cab Franc?
No.
I thought you were talking about Bordeaux. Because the Bordeaux is the Merlot Cab blend.
I was talking about Merlot, and I was also talking about Chateau de Neuf.
Oh, yeah, those are going to be Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't like any of them enough to pay that kind of money for them.
Yeah. Unless you know what you're getting. Unless you've like, I've had that one.
I've never had one that was worth that
much
more than...
Well, I guess at a restaurant price, you're always going to find something that would be less expensive than them.
I mean, these things were
as much or better.
They had them for a good long time. And
yeah.
So they were older. But my point is that I have never had a Chateau de Pape, no matter... I mean, I've had a Chateau de Pape that if you wanted to buy it, I had a 72. It would have cost you $6,000. Now, I managed to get it in an estate sale.
Yeah.
I'd have never paid more than that.
Right.
That than my favorite Napa cabs.
Right.
I don't care if people are paying $6,000 for it. It wasn't worth $6,000 to me. It wasn't better than my favorite $200 Napa cabs. It just wasn't. So.
Well, and that's the thing is that it becomes sort of academic after. It's like I run into this when I'm buying wines for my dad, and we'll talk about, this is very similar to because one of the things that wineries will do is they'll make the same blend as their Chateau Neuf de Pape, but it's not a Chateau Neuf de Pape because the grapes weren't in the right place. But it's the same winery, same basic area. I mean,
same grapes, same percentages.
And he's like, so what's the difference? And I'm like, prestige, really? And I guess maybe it's not aged.
They think the grapes are better.
Well, they think the grapes are better. It's literally like Chateau Neuf de Pape is a demarcated area. If your grapes are just a little bit over to the right of that line, even though it's silly, you can't call it a Chateau Neuf de Pape, even though the climate is exactly the same.
So you will stop a row before that one.
Well, yeah, no. There's a winery where they had property that extended into Chateau Neuf de Pape, and a big part of it didn't. And so they sold their wine at like $15, $20 a bottle. And they're basically like, this is a Chateau Neuf de Pape and everything but name. And if you know Chateau Neuf de Pape, you'll know the quality. And people would buy it by the case because they were right.
Yep. Well, I know when I talk about like my favorite vineyard, which is probably Molly Duker, and they talk about how much better the quality of the grape is in their top of the wine, which is
Velvet Glove,
versus say the Boxer.
Yeah.
Now the Boxer has been chosen as the best value QPR wine 2 years
Yeah.
out of its existence,
Yeah.
and the other one never has.
Right.
Now, they're positive it's better, and I'm like,
it probably is. But that 0.1%
isn't worth $100 to me.
Well, and that's the thing, that the QPR ratio is a great equalizer, because all of a sudden you're not talking about price, you're talking about quality in relation to price, and that 0.1% is not going. It's going to come out a lot lower when you tack on $260 to the price.
It's
tag.
180 to 240 depending on who you're buying it
Yeah.
from. But they're wine that I go to now. I mean, I know that I do like that one, and their next two up, which are $90 a pop.
Yeah.
A little bit more than the Boxer, but I love the Boxer, and it's $32 a bottle. And
Yep.
when you look at the price, the only time that I buy their other wines is when I can't get my hands on the Boxer, because the difference in value versus what you're getting, there's no comparison. The Boxer is just there.
Well, and that is the thing with wine, is that after a certain point, there's only so much that it's not exponential.
Yeah.
You reach an upper limit, and maybe you never quite hit that limit.
And you're paying hundreds of dollars for 1 to 2%. And
right.
And for me, it's not worth that. You get to a point where this wine is awesome, and for $300, I can have it 1% more awesome.
Right.
And my answer to that is, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, and that's the thing, is that it's if money were of no object, then if money were of no object, it would make talking about wine a lot more interesting, because I think that we would be a lot more invested in the actual quality of wine, as opposed to the placebo effect that money might
definitely adds.
Not with you and me, but with a lot of people who do get into wine and get into the price tag and get into the prestige, because prestige feeds price tag. That's part of the reason that the reason that Willamette Valley Pinots are not as expensive as Burgundy is prestige. It's not that they're bad. It's not that there's nothing like that associated with it. I actually probably prefer Willamette Valley Pinots pound for pound better than most Burgundies. But if I were to get into the $6,000 range, be like, oh wow, I can see why this is a good expression of Pinot Noir. Unfortunately, I'll never be able to afford it. I've never even had a Burgundy that expensive.
I could, but I won't. I mean, I'm not dropping more than $1,000 on a bottle of wine.
Yeah, especially not on a Burgundy.
Right. I could. I come close with my Napa Cabs.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I find that with almost every winery, there's a point that I reach.
Right.
That I feel like, I got more for my money, and after this, I'm not getting enough more for my money.
Right.
So virtually all of my favorite vineyards, I like their second best, their third best.
Right.
Is the one, it's my go-to wine, because I don't get enough out of this slight quality increase to give them an extra $100. You want $100 of my money, you got to work harder than that.
You've also run into a ton of wineries that are more considered to be higher quality and more expensive, that you think there's some muddling around going on with whatever they're legally allowed to put in their wines.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, how much of your prestige is based around stuff that didn't involve talent or artistry or skill?
Or that you did 20 years ago.
Or that you, yeah, exactly.
I can think of a number of vineyards
that too.
That used to be very, very good.
Yep, and they're banking on that.
They're banking on that. And people who don't have the ability to taste the difference from year to year aren't going to notice. In fact, they don't even know why they're paying $100 for wine, other than to impress people. I know why I'm paying for it. It's the flavor.
I would much rather
I'm out.
I would much rather a winery be charging $100 for a wine now because they hit it big 20 years ago, rather than because they had Mega Purple and Liquid Smoke. To be honest, because at least one involved skill and artistry.
Right.
And even if they're only still known for something they're not doing, at least they did it once.
The big one that really doesn't do squat for me is Caymus.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why they're still a top-of-the-line wine. Now, I say
hype.
But there'll be times when I'm in a restaurant and I'm looking, and I know that Caymus doesn't suck. It doesn't. I'm going to admit that. But it's always the same, and I get the hint of Mega Purple. Now, do I think they're using as much Mega Purple as any, like the Ravage, your Apothic,
nothing at the
Gnarly
market level
tier? No, I don't. But they're doing just enough to make sure it tastes the same year in and year out. I don't want it to taste the same year in and year out. But I will admit that sometimes I'm in a restaurant, I really want a nice bottle of wine, and there's nothing else on their menu that's any good at all. And so they'll have that.
Caymus is basically the Meiomi of the upper end tier.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's a product of its own hype.
And Meiomi, the only one that doesn't suck, and this is going to be funny for me, is the Pinot Noir. All the rest, they're charging way too much
super jammy.
Yeah.
It's super jammy. It's got something in it that you like, and it's not a typical Pinot Noir, which means that you're going to like it better than you would like other Pinot Noirs, even though you don't normally like
When they
Pinot
do
Noir.
the perfect expression of Pinot Noir, and Warren doesn't want to be around. But there are people who do stuff where they make it bigger, jammier. Well, then I'll talk. But I know that's my problem. I
can't remember if I asked you, have you had the Juggernaut Pinot Noir?
Yes, I have.
What'd you think of it?
It wasn't Pinot Noir.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought when I had it this summer.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this would be an interesting one. I didn't want to spring it on him necessarily, although I do think it would be fun at some point. I wouldn't do it with Pinot Noir, but I might do it with something
I will say I'm not very impressed with their Cabernet.
The Juggernaut?
Yeah, they're just...
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is that
it's not that good.
Yeah, if you're overcompensating with your Pinot Noir that much, there might be a reason. Maybe, I don't know.
Although Pinot envy.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, folks.
I would actually love to throw a ringer in at some point, like bring in a wine in a paper bag and open it and pour it here on camera and have Warren give his completely unvarnished evaluation, good, bad, neutral, whatever, everything. And then
what's your favorite wine? You hate it.
Yeah. Well, no. What I would do is I would bring in something that you've never had before. Right, I would make sure to make it something that was off the wall.
Which isn't that easy to do with me.
It's not. But here's the thing: is that there are plenty of wines from countries that we haven't gotten as much of in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But I think it's possible that we could. And I would have tasted it beforehand and go, I think I'm making a reasonable. I'm not just gonna
you don't want to come up with a wine and it turns out you hate it and I hate it.
Right.
And there's really no reason
for
us
and also
to
that I
review
have a
it.
reasonable assumption that I think you're at least going to partially like it or appreciate something about it, even if it's not your favorite wine in the world.
So I don't even know what to say about this wine as far as should you buy it or not.
It's special, and that's not damning it with faint praise.
If you love Californian Pinots, don't buy this because it's nothing like that. It is way better than that. It's way more interesting, but it's not really all that complicated on the palate. Which is also kind of...
If you like old world, medium bodied...
And that's what I was going for.
Yeah.
I know I prefer old world wines. Unless they're the big Napa Cabs.
If you like old world wines, European wines, and you have an open mind about Pinot Noir, I'd say this is a really interesting and fun one to try because it will give you a quality experience that's different from one that you've had before. And as... people who like different experiences. This was a fun one for us.
So, thank you for tuning in. I think we're pretty much done. We're long over our half hour. Thank you very much for joining in. Cheers.
Sláinte.